Hello, everyone. Topic is an American star. And I'm going to leave you guessing for just a little while who or what I'm talking about. On this map of the world, there are some areas shaded in pinkish, reddish, my color sense is awful, whatever. The vast majority is in a pinkish hue. The question is, what do you think these areas of the world represent? And if you think you know the answer, just shout it out. No takers. There used to be a saying, or there still is, that the sun never sets on the British Empire. This sort of is representative of that. And I got this from the Telegraph, a British newspaper, and it puts in a little line there, says, British have invaded 9 out of 10 countries, so look out Luxembourg. But the point is that, even if you look back about 100 years ago, in the very early 1900s, the British were a world dominant power, maybe even the dominant power. It's not so today. This map is not true today. And so the point I'm trying to make is that fortunes of countries change. And 100 years is not a long time in the history of nations. Fortunes of countries change. I happen to be a great believer in the greatness of America. But I also know that we've got to work really, really hard to maintain our leadership position. And if you don't want to believe Professor Sethna, believe that great management guru, the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland. And the Red Queen says it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. Here's another quiz question for you. Which English language newspaper has the largest circulation in the world? Again, just shout out the answer if you think you know.
Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal, thank you. Any other takers? New York Times, going once, twice. The Times of India. Now, this seems counterintuitive, but let me explain. The population of India is 1.2 billion. So a small fraction of India, and really a minority population, reads English language newspapers. But a really small minority of 1.2 billion is a lot of people. And that's what the background is. And again, the same point is, there's a lot of churn going on out there, and we have to understand that if we have to retain our leadership position. So I'm going to tell you a story of a country and a boy. And I was born in India. This was the first prime minister. His name is Nehru. When India got its independence, it was a poor country. There was a lot of religious strife. People were killing other people in the streets. It was just a terrible, terrible time. And through all that, not knowing really whether the country is going to survive, let alone thrive, Nehru made an incredibly visionary decision. He said he wanted India to have world-class education. And before the word STEM existed, he wanted that world-class education in engineering and science and math. So what did he do? He went to the world powers, the world powerhouses, and said, please come to India and set up a world-class institution, each of them, separate institutions. He would provide the land and the infrastructure and some money, but he wanted their expertise. And he did that when the country was in turmoil, because he had this vision that that is the way that a country can be great. So out of whole cloth, they created 5 world-class institutions just a few years after independence. Those today, or those at that time and today, are known as the IITs, the Indian Institutes of Technology. And it was that vision that created that. Let me fast forward 50 years from that time. We've all heard of Y2K, you know what Y2K is. And when America realized the problem of internal reprogramming of all of its computers, it also realized something else that was very scary. We didn't have the horsepower to get it done. We simply could not, with the programmers available in America, we couldn't get the job done in time. And ladies and gentlemen, this is not something you can raise your hand and ask the teacher for an extension. It can't be done. The most powerful person or persons in the world could not give you an extension on this deadline. So what do you do? When you know you can't get it done in time, and yet you don't have the ability to do it, what do you do? It was at that time that we in America discovered a country called India. And we realized that India was more than just the Taj Mahal and camels and horses and cows running on the road. We also realized something else, that it had incredibly talented people who could program, who spoke English. And a bonus was that the time is almost flipped. So there's while we are awake, they are sleeping, and while we are sleeping, they are awake. And that was an awesome thing to happen. It was a win-win for America and for India. And Tom Friedman, in his book, The World is Flat, jokingly says India should declare Y2K as its Independence Day because that's the day it sort of came onto the world stage. And India has benefited tremendously from that. So the question is, was that just plain dumb luck? Being at the right place at the right time? And Friedman says no, quoting Louis Pasteur, fortune favors the prepared mind. If you're ready, if your mind is ready, then you create your own fortune. And that was the benefit of the vision of Nehru, who didn't know of Y2K. Nobody in this country knew about Y2K in 1947 or 48, or 51 when the IITs came up. But when it happened, India was ready. This figure was my family income. And by American standard, it's below the poverty line, but I didn't feel that it was below the poverty. I always had food on the table and so on, so I was not starving or anything like that. I did starve when I was a doctoral student in Columbia University. That time I starved, but not when I was growing up in India. And my parents had the vision that in spite of all the troubles and all the constraints that we had, that I was going to get a world-class education. And they had that vision. And so turning Maslow on its head, who thinks world-class when your basic needs are not met yet? I would say a true visionary. And I give credit certainly to Nehru for the country and to my parents for everything that I am, and I became, had the honor of being a president of a great university. It happened because of their vision. And frankly, a little bit because of their pushiness. They pushed me. And I think that's just fine. I really believe that's okay. If parents put pressure on their children, absolutely okay. Because I wouldn't have done the things I did were it not for the influence of my parents. So let me move on from this. Now I hope you're beginning to get a feeling for what I believe is an American star. And now I will reveal that it is higher education. I really believe in the transformative power of higher education. And higher education is criticized for saying, you guys need to behave more like a business. And I know that higher education is not perfect, and I know there are things that we can do. So I chose some business model. So these things this is our task. We have to prepare students for jobs that do not exist. How many people do you know, how many little kids 20 years ago said, Mommy, Daddy, I want to be a search engine optimizer when I grow up? Technologies haven't been invented yet. So we have to prepare students, and also to solve problems that we don't know yet. This is really scary and really thrilling at the same time. Remember Y2K? We could not conceive of the problem in the 1950s. So we have to prepare students even when we can't see the problem. And that's the power of higher education. So I'm going to use two business findings. I'm going to follow the tenets of the naysayers. Two business findings. One is the product life cycle, and the other one is the experience curve. So the product life cycle says that if you introduce a new product, there's a period of slow growth, a large period of rapid growth, and then a slowing down. And it's the period of the rapid growth that I want to concentrate on, because during that, a lot of new customers are coming into the market. And it's your chance to win that battle, because you don't have to convert people from one brand to another. You can actually gather new people as they come in. Once it starts slowing down, those opportunities become very little. Washers, dryers, stoves, TVs, cell phones, all of them go through this period of rapid growth where fortunes can change and then a stabling of that whole situation. So hold that thought and let me go to the next one, and that's the experience or learning curve. Now this is a technical term called thingamabob, which you can make. And you can make one of these in your basement. If you start doing something small, it takes a long time. You may not even succeed, it takes a long time. You make the next one, it takes less time, and the next one, and finally you have this downward sloping curve called the learning or the experience curve. Basically what that means is the more we do of something, the quicker and the better we get at it. That's what it means, and it costs less. So that applies to widgets that you're making in your factory. It applies to practice problems in math that you're doing. And there's a good reason why I can't shoot baskets. If I shoot a basketball, I am really thrilled if it comes even close to the board or even in the same time zone as the net. The reason is I don't practice. Now, when you talk about doing regressions on SPSS, I'm a little better than that because I practice. So that's what it means. So let's try to put these two findings together in terms of the Boston Consulting Group product portfolio matrix. The Boston Consulting Group, again, this is not an academic institution, this is an industry-based thing, divides products or strategic business units into 4 quadrants. Let's look at the axes first. There's a low growth market rate and a high growth market rate. For you, it's the simple thing to see, is it on that upward sloping curve where a lot of new people are coming in, or has the market stabilized? There's a high relative market share or a low relative market share. High is the market leader, indeed the dominant market leader. What does that mean in terms of the experience curve? That means I've made more of these widgets than anybody else and my costs are low. So let's start with the one in this lower left quadrant, and this is called a cash cow. A cash cow, look at the sectors that the part of the quadrant it is in. So low market share, meaning now it's stabilized, that you're on that top part of the product life cycle. Not much churn is happening. So your situation is pretty secure if you have the high relative market share. This is basically being the king of the hill. All the churn has taken place, your costs are lower than anybody else's, you're reaping in the profits, and very, very unlikely that someone is going to steal your leadership position. What an awesome position to be in. Everyone wants a cash cow, because that generates money that feeds the rest of the company. But here's the catch. You can't be a cash cow unless you already had what they call a star. Meaning, in a high growth market, if you're the market leader, then when the market stabilizes, you'll be a cash cow. So that's what they call a star. We won't spend too much time on the others. The dog is if you're in a low growth market and a low market share, there's really nothing you can do and you might as well get rid of that product. And a question mark is you could go either way. But I want to concentrate really on the cash cows and the stars. And remember, cash cow is great, but you can't be a cash cow unless you have a star. And in that rapid growth rate, the thing you do is you invest in the star so that it'll become a cash cow. So let's look at this in the context of academic institutions. Clearly, the death of academic institutions, especially the traditional academic institutions, has been foretold. Everyone thinks, even Peter Drucker said, now it's been almost 30 years, maybe 25 years ago, said that the traditional college will cease to exist. It hasn't happened yet. So what does the data say? What's the growth in enrollment in degree-granting institutions? Now, I'm a believer that we need more and better high school students, we need more and better technical college students, and we need more and better college, the four-year/graduate college. But I'm going to concentrate on degree-granting institutions today. So what do you think the growth rate is? 0%, negative, what? After all this death talk, it's actually 24%. How about full-time enrollment? Remember this number and make a guess at full-time enrollment at degree-granting institutions. The answer is 28%. So, to quote Mark Twain, the report of my death was an exaggeration. Mark Twain in 1897 and higher education today. Let's look at some other data because we operate on an international stage. So this is the growth rate of international students in the United States. Regardless of your knowledge of statistics, the most interesting fact is that the slope of this line is 35,000 plus, which means that every year we are adding 35,000 new students, international students, in America. That's like a city of Douglasville, actually a little more than the city of Douglasville, being added each and every year. That's what's happening. So that's a pretty powerful growth rate, and we'd be foolish indeed to ignore that. Let's look at relative market share. Countries with the most university students. Let me give you the runner-up first. Second most university students is India. The winner is America. So relative market share, remember that product portfolio matrix. It has 235% of the number of its next largest competitor. Let's look at countries which attract international students. Runner-up is the United Kingdom. The winner is America, and it has 173% of its next largest competitor. So we have now a reasonably high growth rate, but an awesomely high market share, relative market share. America has that. America, therefore, should treat higher education as an American star. What's the message of a star? Invest, 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 because one day that market will slow down. And if you're not the market leader, you're not going to be a cash cow. So some caveats. Of course, these are personal views. As a state employee, I have to be very careful, independent of any organizational affiliation, pure views as a citizen, not with reference to any state or person. And let's talk a little bit about the growth rate. Growth rates are either, depending on which graph you look at, pretty awesome or not so awesome, but they are positive. And just last month, there was an important article published in Times Higher Education, which said that growth in higher ed is not only likely to continue, but it actually has a strong correlation between number of universities being created and GDP growth. This is an international study. So, ideas worth spreading. The big idea is higher education is an American star. It needs resources worthy of America's top brands. There's a call to knowledge. I share data with you, call to feeling. You see that I'm passionate about this, and I hope you are now, and a call to action. So higher education is an American star, and I hope you will support it. Thank you very much.